Story that took Illinois politics by storm, the conviction and jailing of the nation's longest-serving public official, ex-Chicago Alderman Ed Burke.
NBC5 investigates the financial part of Burke's punishment and the surprising way state officials say he can pay that $2 million fine. NBC5's Chuck Goudie is here to explain it for us. Chuck?
Stefan, tonight Ed Burke's next moves are simple. The former city council power broker will transition to life out of prison, likely home confinement, coming after serving less than half of his punishment actually in prison. Then down the road, Burke will have to pay a $2 million fine, the financial part of the sentence. Tonight, NBC5 investigates where Ed Burke could get that money, and the source may surprise you. Ed Burke currently has about $8 million in his campaign fund, according to Illinois state election records. While some of that money was collected after state campaign finance laws were tightened in 1998 and controls put on how it could be spent, state election officials tell NBC Chicago that almost $2.5 million of Burke campaign money predates the more strict laws, and that Burke could legally use that money to pay his $2 million federal fine and still have $500,000 to spend on new suits, vacations, or steak dinners.
Nobody who donated to Ed Burke's campaign would think that that money would be used to pay a fine or that that money would be used to support his lifestyle. It was to have him run for office.
Tonight, former Assistant U.S. Attorney Ron Safer is irked by Burke's ability to draw on campaign funds to pay for his illegal activity. Safer says if Burke had been a federal elected official, he couldn't do that. Burke was released yesterday from the Thompson prison in northwestern Illinois and transferred here to a Salvation Army halfway house in Chicago's Humboldt Park, where his wife, former state Supreme Court Chief Justice Ann Burke, paid him a visit today. Even though Burke is a beneficiary of new federal procedures that promote home confinement, ex-prosecutor Safer contends the public really isn't being served by any of it.
Certainly, he has served an extremely light sentence for the gravity of his crime. You know, the corruption that was described in the accounts for which he was convicted is grave, and the abuse of office is serious. And there's a strong argument that these kind of slap on the wrist sentences where somebody ends up serving even less than a year in prison just feeds the corruption frenzy, doesn't serve any deterrent value, and that's a problem.
Ed Burke could put that money to its intended use, a political campaign. Despite being a convicted felon now, Burke could run for state or federal office, but not for alderman again under the law. However, at age 81, Ed Burke is more likely to ride into the sunset, according to Safer, bankrolled in part by some of the campaign funds he collected decades ago.
So he could use those campaign funds to pay this fine?
$2 million. He could use it and still have change.
I think of all the other politicians that have gone to jail for misusing campaign funds in the past, but this would be okay, it sounds like.
Right. He is essentially paying off the system for corruption for years.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck.
Appreciate it.